A crisis that never needed a name. It never triggered emergency headlines. No single institution failed. And yet, it reshaped how Europe thinks about danger. The most important crisis of the decade past, without ever being called one. To understand why this unnamed crisis mattered, we need to look at how systems are usually judged. Failure is loud. Panic is visible. Collapse leaves records. But some crises unfold without breaking anything. They surface as moments when systems almost move the wrong way. Together, the story begins after repeated successes. Each challenge Europe faced ended without disaster. Tools worked. Coordination held. Markets recovered. Over time, survival itself became evidence of strength. The idea took hold that the system had learned how to protect itself. Inside markets, behavior adjusted accordingly. Risk was still managed, but urgency faded. Near misses were forgotten quickly. Because nothing broke, nothing was remembered publicly. The absence of scars made the system feel safer than it was. Regulators noticed subtle changes first. Stress indicators remained calm, but responses to minor shocks began clustering. Institutions reacted faster and more similarly than before. What once unfolded over weeks now happened in days. Speed replaced judgment. Banks saw the same pattern internally. Contingency plans were effective, but they activated in parallel. Buffers existed, but discretion narrowed. The system was resilient, but tightly wound. It could absorb stress, but only if timing stayed favorable. What made this moment dangerous was invisibility. No rule was violated. No threshold crossed. Nothing justified intervention. And yet, alignment was building beneath the surface. Everyone was prepared for the same future, at the same time. The crisis did not announce itself because it never arrived fully. It hovered. It revealed itself through behavior rather than loss, through compression rather than collapse. A crisis that never needed a name still left a mark, because it showed how close stability can sit to fragility, without ever looking like failure. And once that realization set in, Europe began to treat calm very differently. The unnamed crisis deepened through repetition. Each minor shock was absorbed cleanly, reinforcing confidence that the system could handle anything placed before it. What went unnoticed was how each successful response tightened alignment further. Inside markets, reaction speed increased. Algorithms recalibrated faster. Risk committees shortened timelines. Decisions that once involved debate became procedural. The system was not panicking. It was becoming automatic. That automation felt like progress. Faster response meant fewer losses. Cleaner exits meant less damage. But speed removed reflection. When every signal triggers the same reaction, difference disappears. Behavior converges, even when conditions do not. Banks adjusted operating models accordingly. Contingency plans became more standardized. Liquidity actions were pre-mapped. Discretion gave way to protocol. The goal was reliability. The cost was flexibility. Regulators watched responses synchronize across borders. Stress tests still passed. Capital remained strong. Yet the margin between reaction and overreaction narrowed. Timing mattered more than fundamentals. Small inputs produced large, coordinated outputs. The danger was not hidden leverage or excessive risk-taking. It was uniformity. Everyone was prepared to do the right thing at the same time. In isolation, each action made sense. Together, they compressed adjustment into a narrow window. Markets began reflecting this compression. Moves became sharper even when justified. Volatility appeared suddenly, then vanished. Prices adjusted in steps rather than flows. The system was functioning, but with less tolerance for delay. What made intervention difficult was plausibility. There was nothing to fix, no rule to change, no institution to restrain. Acting against success felt unjustified. The crisis lacked a form that could be addressed directly, and so it continued without a name, a condition rather than an event, a risk that lived in coordination, not collapse. Each calm response made the next adjustment faster, tighter, and less forgiving. The system had not become weak. It had become precise. And precision, when shared too widely, leaves little room for error. The breaking point was not a shock, but a realization. Observers began to see that the system no longer absorbed stress gradually. It absorbed it instantly. Adjustment had become simultaneous, leaving no space for sequencing or discretion. Inside institutions, this recognition spread quietly. Risk managers noticed that independent decisions were producing identical outcomes. Hedging strategies overlapped. Liquidity actions mirrored one another. Diversity of response had been replaced by speed of execution. Markets reflected the shift immediately. When pressure appeared, prices moved in sharp, compressed steps. There was no build-up, no warning phase. Calm flipped to adjustment without transition. The system still corrected, but it did so abruptly. Regulators faced a paradox. Tools designed to prevent crisis had created conditions where reaction itself could generate instability, not because responses were wrong, but because they were synchronized. The problem was not magnitude, it was timing. Efforts to slow behavior met resistance. Protocols were embedded. Automation rewarded consistency. Asking institutions to hesitate felt like asking them to accept risk. Yet hesitation was precisely what the system lacked. What made the moment dangerous was inevitability. Once alignment reaches a certain density, it sustains itself. Even if actors want to differentiate, they cannot easily do so without standing alone. Coordination becomes self-reinforcing. The unnamed crisis had revealed its true shape. It was not about fragility of balance sheets. It was about fragility of timing. The system could withstand loss. It could not withstand everyone responding at once. Europe had reached a threshold where success had produced its own constraint. Stability had eliminated noise, but it also eliminated delay. And without delay, control over outcomes diminishes rapidly. The final question was unavoidable. How do you restore friction in a system designed to eliminate it without breaking what already works? The resolution did not come through dramatic reform or sweeping intervention. It came through restraint applied in reverse. Europe did not add new layers of protection. It reintroduced space. Regulators adjusted expectations rather than rules. Stress frameworks were revised to account for simultaneity, not just severity. Institutions were encouraged to rebuild discretion inside automated responses. The goal was not to slow markets permanently, but to restore sequence. Banks adapted their internal cultures. Protocols remained, but override space widened. Decision windows lengthened slightly. Redundancy was no longer treated as inefficiency. It was reframed as insurance against synchronization. The system began relearning how to hesitate productively. Markets responded unevenly at first. Volatility became less predictable, but more informative. Prices moved in flows again, not jumps. Disagreement returned. And with disagreement came resilience. Adjustment spread over time instead of collapsing into moments. What Europe learned from the crisis that never needed a name was quietly transformative. Danger does not always arrive as collapse. Sometimes it arrives as perfection. Systems that function too smoothly can lose the very friction that protects them. Stability was no longer treated as an endpoint. It became a condition requiring maintenance. Calm was monitored. Silence was questioned. Success was examined for what it removed as well as what it delivered. The unnamed crisis left no monument, but it changed how risk was understood, not as something that explodes, but as something that compresses, not as failure, but as alignment taken too far. In the end, Europe did not weaken its system to make it safer. It loosened it just enough to breathe again. So what do you think? Are we repeating the same mistake again?